You know, I've really valued TJ Kirk's content for years. I've been listening to what he has to say for the last 12 years. I find him entertaining. I'm not parasocial about it, of course not. I watch him on the side here and there, every now and then when he gets recommended by the YouTube algorithm AI overlord. But recently, he put out a video, which, of course, he did. But this video, in particular, talks about how he's annoyed at people who make politics their entire identity, and calling people who go out to protest for a specific message are wasting their time entirely, or people who devote their lives to making the world somewhat better are addicts and killing their soul. And then he uses Ted Bundy as an example for breaking bad laws that you don't like. Now, I would like to steelman his argument and respond to what I think he's trying to articulate with some of his points. And I'll speak to what he ultimately ended up saying. Historically, does the left constantly take L's? Yeah. Being a progressive and standing up for social justice, being generally on the right side of history, that's infuriating. I completely understand TJ's exhaustion and exasperation and nihilistic pessimism in the face of such constant struggle. I get it. I understand why he ultimately says that people should give up. I don't like the idea of giving up on good causes, personally. I feel like a pussy, honestly, if I did that. I'd feel like a fat, angry, washed-up person who's not actually doing anything to make the world better if I completely gave up on good causes that are worth a little bit of suffering in the long run. Now, his charge that activism doesn't end up changing powerful systems is historically inaccurate, based on precedent. Let's look at labor movement victories, child labor laws, and an 8-hour workday. Workplace safety standards were all won through strikes and collective action, not apathy. And people giving up because it's hard. It's difficult. BLM marches forced body cam reforms and diverted $840 million plus from police budgets to community services throughout 2020 to 2023. Medicare won via 1960s disability sit-ins. Selma's Bloody Sunday protests directly pressured LBJ, Lyndon B. Johnson, to sign the Voting Rights Act in 1965. We're all familiar with the famous MLK quote, "Riots are the language of the unheard." It exposes how disruption forces accountability from these pussy-ass corrupt politicians that never like to listen to the screaming protesters holding signs. It was decades of LGBTQIA activism, protests, legal challenges, and visibility campaigns that shifted public opinion and won Supreme Court victories. Now, that doesn't mean they're permanent, but they are victories. And they only remain permanent victories if we, the people, continue to hold the establishment accountable. It's emotional and physical labor, but I'd argue it's necessary labor. For the sake of freedom and the rights of you and your neighbors and your friends, and all the strangers that you just want to leave alone. Changes to the system happen only when power is consistently challenged, collectively. Not when individuals opt out because it's too difficult. And it feels like bashing my face against a brick wall sometimes. Sometimes you really can't get through life without a little bit of prolonged suffering. Just a little bit. Now, him getting angry at people who create an identity out of politics, get the fuck over it. Go cry about it. I mean, why don't you just call out your hillbilly when he makes a stupid fucking point and injects politics where it doesn't belong? Yeah, those people annoy me too. It's his personal hang-up. But I think his video was dangerous. I know he didn't intend it to be dangerous. But it is dangerous. It's dangerous to push apathy. He has a platform that appeals to almost 1 million people and might even appeal to many others. And as a person with that success and that notoriety, you have to have some fucking responsibility here. Especially when you come out with garbage takes like this. Now look. He creates a false dichotomy here. And I think he can't see it because of his apathetic privilege. Privilege that I know, and you know, he knows he has. Survival is not performance art, as he reductively referred to protests as. For certain marginalized groups, trans people, immigrants in ICE concentration gulags, etc., politics isn't a personality. It's literally survival. Kirk's critique ignores how privilege allows the level of detachment he yearns for. Oh, how easy life can be if we could all just float through life, living in a delusion, a blissful fantasy. We can always end up going for a hike in the woods and experience our recreational desires. Those recreational hobbies can always end up being taken from you by the government if you don't fight to keep them. What happens if video games and movies are outlawed? What happens if state parks are outlawed? What happens if bikes are outlawed? What happens if knitting is outlawed? What happens when books are outlawed? What happens if keeping a journal is outlawed? What happens when thinking becomes a crime? Now, what I believe TJ is trying to articulate in this video is that state-sanctioned violence is a tsunami we are up against, like tiny crabs on the beach. The government owns a monopoly on violence. And there are plenty of bad laws written on the books that are oftentimes enforced that make little to no sense, that are anti-freedom. Laws against recreational drug use, as an example. And sure, I think people should break stupid laws. Stupid laws should not be respected. They should not be enforced, and they should not be followed. But I find his Ted Bundy example as just, frankly, intellectually fucking lazy. I think what TJ was trying to convey is that we should not fear violence in all contexts. Considering he brought up the scenario of a group of armed protesters angry at a corrupt politician inside of a building who's about to fuck these people's lives over, and how that might make that corrupt politician hesitate. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. I wish he could have used a better example of anti-government violence. The Unabomber comes to mind. You know, someone who directly attacked the government buildings, just saying. Ted Kaczynski. Why is it all Teds right now? You know, maybe if I do have a kid, I'll name him Ted. And I'll raise him to really hate the government. The right people in the government, that is. Jokes aside, though, this is a false equivalence TJ makes between predatory violence, Bundy, and revolutionary defense against state-sanctioned violence, Washington's legacy. Or ICE. Let's just call a spade here. And Ted Bundy and George Washington represent two faces of oppressive violence. One is chaotic, the other is systemic and structural. It's pathological cruelty versus political resistance. Bundy's crimes were acts of his personal sadistic maladaptation, necrophilia, mutilation, and the commodification of victims as trophies. His violence served no emancipatory purposes. It reinforced patriarchal terror by treating women as disposable objects for him to humiliate. Your example is embarrassing. As feminist scholar Jane Capuzzi argues, such violence is the ultimate expression of a sexuality that defines sex as domination. There is state complicity in glorifying predators like Bundy. It's media narratives, Netflix's conversation with a killer, can end up sanitizing Bundy's crimes, framing him as a charming sociopath, rather than focusing on his victims and the lives they had and what they could have contributed to the world, maybe through some political activism of their own. Don't obscure how his violence emerged from a culture of male entitlement, not systemic resistance. No matter how fascinated we are with the human mind and the minds of killers like Ted Bundy, Jessica Davis's analysis shows that Ted Bundy's violence stemmed directly from patriarchal, heteronormative entitlement, which became commodified by the media. Let's distinguish a little bit Ted Bundy's lone, predatory violence with community defense and acts of vigilantism meant to protect society. Violence can gain moral and ethically justifiable weight from its context. The Deacons for Peace had patrols which lessened the amount of KKK ambushes that occurred. Sometimes, when you prepare for violence, you can prevent violence. We live in an abusive society. Up to 70% of adults in this country have experienced at least one adverse childhood occurrence. And think about how many men and women experience rape, physical violence, and harassment. We need not romanticize psychopathy and slavery, okay? Equating Ted Bundy with George Washington ignores how social justice movements target structures of the system, not just individuals with no power. Revolutions succeed by building alternative systems. Black Panthers? Just saying. They built 3 fucking clinics. They didn't just do isolated violence. It's a lot of hard work involved. Now, I'm a strategic lawbreaker, okay? I love breaking stupid fucking laws as much as any motherfucker. The drug war is a complete and total human rights violation. It's evil policy, and cops are nothing more than highwaymen who like to rob you of your money and drugs on the road. You traveling with any large amounts of cash? Huh? Well, that's mine now. I'm here to protect and serve the community. They're worthless motherfuckers who show up when someone's tripping balls on the street, and they serve no other purpose other than to give someone a bad trip and promote the authoritarian regimes we all live under. Fuck them. Fuck the drug war. Do whatever fucking drug you want. Do meth. Do heroin. Do crack. Do PCP. Do bath salts if you can handle it. Fuck. Just be careful you're not doing fentanyl. Personally, they're not my drugs of choice. I prefer mushrooms. DMT. I'm interested in salvia, mescaline, and LSD. Psychedelics are the way I go. I enjoy drinking a whiskey. Like a basic bitch every now and then, but yeah, Of course, that's illegal. It's just my personal choice. Fuck the drug laws. Do what you want. ACAB, bitch. As long as you aren't hurting anyone else willy-nilly, you do you. Now disruption. Civil disobedience, sit-ins, marches down the road, strikes, affecting certain businesses and their bottom line with these actions, or rather what TJ generalized as performance art, is public and principled, and it's used to expose injustice. Martin Luther King Jr. argued, "One who breaks an unjust law must do so openly and lovingly to arouse the conscience of the community." Ted Bundy's law-breaking and psychotic secrecy served only himself. Coward and a useless eater. A worthless monster, less than the dirt under my toenails. Breaking laws to uphold capitalism and white supremacy and heterocentric patriarchy are not equivalent to breaking laws to liberate the oppressed. I think of Nelson Mandela's quote. He said, "It would be wrong and unrealistic for African leaders to continue preaching peace and nonviolence at a time when the government met our peaceful demands with force. It was only when all else had failed, when all channels of peaceful protest had been barred to us, that the decision was made to embark on violent forms of political struggle." I would argue that we're already at that precipice in North American culture. Armed protesters do make policymakers fear for their safety, and it can lead them to concede to demands faster. This is realpolitik. Power respects only greater power. Revolutionary violence, by contrast to fucking Bundy, is a scalpel wielded by communities with no other options. It's not desirable, but when the state suspends habeas corpus, like Stephen fucking Miller, a member of our government, said that the government should do,
the privilege of the writ of habeas corpus can be suspended in a time of invasion. So I would say that's an option we're actively looking at.
or if the government deploys death squads, it becomes what Kenyan activists call the language of the unheard. TJ might be a little blind to this moral chasm. Maybe just kind of shitty at articulating his point overall. Using an example like Ted Bundy, you can do better than that, man. Come on. Use your fucking brain. I know you have one. Do I think TJ Kirk wants to be like Ted Bundy and kill women? No. Do I think he respects Ted Bundy? No. Do I think he wants to kill women and fuck their dead corpses and take pieces of their body as trophies? Gosh, I hope not. But no, I don't think he respects Ted Bundy. I'm not that dense. Now look, I'm not trying to be too harsh. I think I know what's going on with TJ right now. If your existence is political, resistance isn't a hobby. It's holistic. It's therapeutic and necessary. We live in an extremely dark period of the United States, and it's only about to get darker. Very quickly. For a long period of time. TJ, your despair is valid. Your exhaustion is real. I understand your nihilism. I get it. Believe me, I get it. I know what it's like to want to say, fuck it all. The hell with all this shit. I feel like that. I feel it. I know what it's like. You have to let your nihilism course through your veins like an adrenaline rush. Give yourself the space and time to expel that energy and say, fuck everything from time to time. Alright? But don't become trapped by your nihilism. Don't let it change who you are and control what you do, what you should be doing to make society better. Channel your nihilism into something revolutionary, not apathetic. What do I mean by adrenaline rush? That icy realization that every institution is a lie. That can be revolutionary jet fuel. It strips away illusions, freeing your mind in the process to act even more. But TJ mistakes the rush for the destination. He's paralyzed and spiritually flatlined in the crash. TJ is prescribing his own burnout as everyone else's cure. As if quitting activism is self-care. Maybe for him, maybe he needs to do that. But not everybody needs to be like TJ. Some individuals thrive on the front lines of activism. It's where they do find purpose. What if fighting is your self-care? What about then? What if your soul withers without resistance? It's not soul killing for someone who isn't him to devote their lives to politics and activism. The issue is that TJ has given up, and he's annoyed by other people who can continue fighting, despite the constant losses, to rebel for the sake of rebellion. You don't need to let that take up space in your brain, TJ. Just move on. Do what's healthy for you, but don't apply your same standards to other people. TJ needs detachment in order to survive. That's fine, buddy. But don't mistake your path for universal law. Washington's slaves resisted through work slowdowns, feigned illness, and schemed to escape captivity. Modern movements must similarly strike at the pillars of capitalism. Feudalism has led to capitalism, and capitalism is currently devolving into techno-feudalism, which I guarantee will not last as long as capitalism has. Capitalism is already dying. The system does change. Just not always for the better. But you can take advantage of the cracks that form in the foundation of this country. TJ's dressing his retreat as wisdom. It's like a soldier abandoning his unit mid-battle and calling it strategic advice, bro. Who's there to cover his back when he's running away? Some people find their souls not despite the struggle, but because of it. You can build gardens and bomb craters. You can turn grief into shields. You want to break the laws like Bundy? Break the law that equates survival with selfishness. I'll be over there, armed and fighting with rage and alive in the struggle. Nihilism is like a fire. I fear TJ has let it consume him, but you can use that fire to forge weapons. Your path isn't wrong just because TJ hit a dead end. His personal burnout is not philosophical wisdom that can be applied to you. It's a projection of his own surrender onto other people. But I get it. The burnout cycle. Activism can erode your mental health when disconnected from community care. Endless outrage cycles can cause burnout, reducing activists to political husks with no inner life. Kirk implies that obsessive politics replaces hobbies, relationships, and joy, corroding mental health, but that isn't entirely true. Chronic stress from fighting unwinnable battles? Yes, it does breed despair. Kenyan Saba Saba organizers prove that sustainable resistance requires ritual, rest, and collective grieving. TJ's false universalization, claiming activism is futile, ignores those thriving in justice work. Indigenous water protectors at Standing Rock integrated ceremony into direct action. Palestinian poets weaponize their own joy as resistance against the apartheid of Israel. Their souls are not dead. They're fighting for lives. And the spoiled rich children we are here in America, who will always be born more fortunate than that of a Palestinian child, needs to remember that the choice in activism is a luxury we have, because politics and activism for some is life or death. And that's something we need to always respect and remember as U.S. citizens. While we can crash on our couch, eating potato chips and jerking off to the next Mortal Kombat installment, which I am personally excited to see, because this empire lives off of the rest of the world. We may be able to do those recreational activities now, but there might come a time when we can't. We need to stop taking certain freedoms for granted. We don't need to look to Ted Bundy as an example. A parasite leeching off of society. TJ can log off because his identity isn't criminalized, but when ICE raids your block or trans healthcare is banned, not resisting is complicity in the face of fascism. You become a good American, just like the good Germans. Capitalism is dying. Fungi thrives off of decay and death. We can thrive from the decomposing corpse of capitalism if we know how to use it right. How to take these opportunities. Nihilism harvests rot. It doesn't surrender to it. So, TJ, I hope you're having a wonderful day. Get some rest. Peace out, motherfucker. Oh, and free Luigi.